y'all? This is your boy Charles Arnez. Charles Arnez, where we are checking out Labyrinth by Ben Westhoff. I'm sorry, not Labyrinth. Wrong book. We're checking out Original Gangsters by Ben Westhoff. Let's go ahead and play this, and I'm going to come back with my reaction. Thumbs up, buddy.
A different skill set. The Chronic features a cornucopia of rap talent. Assembling the collaborators was a monumental task for Dre and Suge, requiring talent scouting, familial connections, and some luck. R&B singer Jewel, who scandalized her mother by appearing on NWA's I'd Rather Fuck You, was the first offered a slot, and became known as the First Lady of Death Row. Warren G and his Long Beach friend, Nate Dogg, were recruited for the work as well. For the rapper Kurupt, however, entree was more complicated. A rail-thin Philadelphia native transplanted to South Central, he was, like Snoop, a hot-tempered Crip affiliate who also happened to love canines. He and his buddies would dress their pups in blue rags. But the pair didn't meet until one night outside the famous Roxy Theater on Sunset Boulevard. Snoop was fresh from jail, and neither was yet known. But they nonetheless held themselves in high regard, and their duel that night would fuel their trajectories. Inside the Roxy, rappers battled, with Long Beach MC Domino taking home the prize. But the real action took place outside in the parking lot afterward. As popularized in the 2002 Eminem movie, 8 Mile, battle rapping features two opponents facing each other down and spitting stanzas for supremacy. The particulars vary. There might be a backing beat, or it might be a cappella. Sometimes there are formal judges, sometimes not. Some battles are freestyle, while some MCs come armed with memorized verses. Whatever the format, battles can get quite personal. When an opposing rapper is spitting in your face about doing unconscionable things to your personage, you must, instead of becoming irate, come up with a hilarious insult to save the day. It's an entirely different skill set than rapping on record. In the studio, crisp pronunciation and pacing are important skills. Battle rapping rewards impassioned outbursts and inspired digressions. While waiting for their cars outside the Roxy that night, Snoop's Long Beach crew and Kurupt's South Central crew got to talking, and then battling. As Snoop looked on, Kurupt quickly slayed his opponents. "This nigga was serving all my homies, like a Chinese karate movie," Snoop remembered. Eventually, Snoop and Kurupt went at it, and their epic battle lasted for maybe 45 minutes. They fought to a draw, and vowed to stay in touch. Kurupt still had to pass muster with the big boss, whom he soon met at Dre's Calabasas house. "I heard you was tight," Suge told Kurupt. "If you're whack, we'll throw your ass in the pool. If you're tight, we'll give you a record deal." Shrugging off the pressure, Kurupt gave an impromptu performance, freestyling a tribute to a kid in attendance having a birthday. Suge gave him a record deal on the spot. As it turned out, Kurupt had already signed promotional contracts with brothers Lamont and Kenneth Broomfield, and their pair later sued Death Row, winning some $5 million in punitive damages. Nearly every rap crew worth its salt had a strong female MC, and Death Row landed the toughest of all. The Lady of Rage was a thick rapper in Timberland boots, 175 pounds of beef, beating your ass down to the concrete, in her own estimation. A Virginia native, she may have inspired Queen Latifah comparisons, but was a vicious, self-proclaimed, lyrical murderer with a penchant for stealing the scene. When Dre first heard her recordings with a production team called LA Posse, she was quasi-homeless, sleeping on a couch in Manhattan studio Chung King. He got her on the phone, and before long, Death Row sent her a ticket to fly to Los Angeles. Also in the mix for the Chronic was a pair of Snoop's cousins, one on his dad's side, a rapper and producer named Dat Nigga Daz, Daz for short, who partnered up with Kurupt for the Snoop-allied group, The Dog Pound. Daz was also affiliated with Long Beach Crips, and the act was sometimes called Dog Pound Gangsta Crips. Snoop's cousin on his mother's side, RBX, was a former football teammate of Suge's at the University of Nevada, a towering defensive end who came back to Los Angeles on the weekends to battle with the Freestyle Fellowship at the Good Life Cafe, hoping to win rent money. He boasted a heavy, thick flow. "The first time I heard RBX rap, I was high on mushrooms," DOC said. "It was like having your eyes closed and having motherfuckers hit you with rocks from all different directions." RBX, whose name stands for Reality Born Unknown, saw his life changed forever one day when Snoop came by the shoe store where he was working and hit him up for a ride to Dre's house. When they later arrived there, the producer noticed RBX's deep, resounding baritone, hoping he might be able to rap as distinctively as he sounded. Later that night, RBX showed him he could. "You can't leave," Dre told him. Suge wanted everyone to know that Death Row had the toughest, realest crew in all the West, particularly the people who mattered to him most, the guys on the block. To impress them, his MCs needed to be more than just studio rappers. They needed to be courageous, street smart, and quick on their feet. They needed to be battle rappers. Suge put the word out. Anyone who thought they could beat Death Row artists would have a chance to prove it. Suge began sending his label's artists to small amphitheaters or housing projects like Watts Nickerson Gardens to battle total strangers, performing on mics hooked up to sound systems. Snoop, who despite his laid-back flow, is also a freestyle beast, quickly concocting hard-edged poetry and humorous punchlines, was often the first to battle. He would be followed by Kurupt, who specialized in taking down particularly lyrical opponents with wicked freestyles. Next, the Lady of Rage battled any female rappers. "Rage would start eating these niggas alive," Kurupt said. RBX was the last line of defense. Suge sought to make it worth the competitors' whiles. "If you can serve Kurupt, I'll give you a record deal," he told them. No one got a record deal. "Kurupt's still the best freestyler alive," said Chris the Glove Taylor. A group of legendary Houston rappers were in the mix as well. In a video from this era filmed at a Beverly Center club, Snoop performs in a freestyle cypher before passing the mic to Scarface of the Geto Boys. Face's groupmates Bushwick Bill and Big Mike participate in the cypher as well and were involved in early Death Row projects. Unfortunately, owing to a combination of factors, Death Row's financing from Interscope hadn't yet come through for one thing. They soon headed back to Texas. In any case, these freestyle sessions bonded the Death Row crew and pushed them creatively. Their efforts would shine through on The Chronic tracks like Stranded on Death Row, which evokes the East Coast cypher tradition with its dense verses. West Coast gangster rappers are sometimes accused of having more bark than lyrical bite, but the team assembled for The Chronic could go toe-to-toe with anyone. Comically broke. Though signed to Death Row, this cohort was living modestly as they worked on The Chronic. Suge paid the new artists a modest retainer. Snoop said he got $1,000 a month, with promises of big paydays at some future point. They often congregated at Snoop's one-bedroom Hollywood apartment, which he rented for $500 a month. The Peach Stucco complex on La Mirada, with a great view of the Hollywood sign, was only a 10-minute walk from Solar Studios. Hollywood itself was rough then. Crack dealers plied their trade on nearby Santa Monica, but Snoop loved the place, sometimes piling a half-dozen people into the apartment's sole bedroom and nurturing a pet roach he called Gooch. Daz, Kurupt, RBX, Nate Dogg, and Warren G were regulars. The apartment stayed unfurnished, save for some chairs and a table to play dominoes, and the fridge was usually bare too, except maybe for some Seagrams and a bottle of juice. They were almost comically broke. When the source scribe Ronan Rowe stopped by in 1992, Snoop hit him up for $5 to buy weed. The Lady of Rage and Jewel shared an apartment in the same building, and they sometimes cooked up spaghetti or tacos for the fellas. We was like a family, Kurupt said. No one had a reliable car, and the money situation was sketchy, but they could walk to work and had most everything they needed. Many would look back on this time as the happiest of their careers. The best records came out when we were starving, Nate Dogg said. After all, until recently, some of them had been homeless, locked up, or dealing drugs, but they were now recording at a real-deal studio. In addition to sometimes paying Snoop's rent, Dick Griffey would descend from his garish top-floor office and give the rapper tours of the Solar Building, where hit groups like Shalimar Lakeside and The Whispers recorded. We would see reels with the old records and old songs, Snoop said. To have a young kid in that environment, it's like if you were a basketball player and Michael Jordan let you use the facilities where he practiced. How wouldn't you become LeBron James or Kobe Bryant? The squabbles about percentages and royalties could wait until later. For the time being, they spent their hours rhyming, eating Popeye's chicken, watching TV, or just goofing around. Mainly they wrote, working on their fledgling song sketches, bouncing ideas off one another. The Chronic wasn't just the name of the album they were working on. It was their inspiration. Chronic is slang for particularly potent weed, sticky, vibrantly colored buds that are much stronger than the stems and sticks, dull brown herb most potheads were smoking. For decades, California has been known for superior marijuana, much of it originating in the so-called Emerald Triangle in the wooded northern part of the state, Humboldt, Mendocino, and Trinity counties, where ex-hippies fostered colossal farms. When it comes to cannabis, there's a history, a set of traditions, and a depth of knowledge in those communities that's just unparalleled, said former High Times editor David Bienenstock. That's why we made the Chronic, because we had the Chronic, Snoop said.
Anyway, y'all, that is Original Gangsters. Ben Westhoff. Want to check out the rest of the audiobook, go ahead and check it out on Audible, Original Gangsters. But anyway, it's interesting to hear that sometimes that always be the funnest times though, man, when you ain't got nothing, you just hanging out with your friend, there's no jealousy involved, there's no animosity involved. You broke, I'm broke, let's just hang out together, you know what I'm saying? Because once money gets involved and you see, damn, he got more money than I got, look what he driving, but I only got this, I'm still kind of struggling. Then that's when the jealousy comes in, animosity comes in, when money gets involved in certain things, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, a lot of times, man, I can think back when I was a teenager, when I ain't have nothing, and that would be, we would find stuff to get into and have so much fun, But anyway, it's interesting to hear about how Death Row got put together as we celebrate 50 years of hip hop. Happy birthday, hip hop! Leave your comments and subscribe to Charles on there as well. Appreciate you guys watching.